Why all the hate? This looks effing awesome, and I hated Borderlands 3. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan McCaffrey. I'm the previews editor at IGN, and recently, Travis Northup, who's joining me now, got to sit down and play about 5 hours worth of Borderlands 4, one of this year's biggest upcoming games. We have gone through and collected, after Travis posted his preview, all of your questions, all of your best questions from the various comment sections on different platforms, and we're going to run through and answer the best of those the best we can. Travis, thanks for joining me. Thanks for handling this preview. And let's just get started with this first question. It's a pretty big picture one. Here we go. Is it a return to form for Gearbox?
That is obviously the question everyone wants to know the answer to with this one. I think the answer is it remains to be seen, but signs are pretty positive right now. So all the stuff that I played, a lot of focus on like the gunplay and mobility and that sort of stuff is really great to see. The refocus on the story with a new planet, new characters, new tone that kind of is reminiscent of Borderlands 1 in my mind, I think is probably a good sign for players like myself who were a little turned off by some of Borderlands 3's comedy chops. So signs certainly point to yes, but as with all these things, you never really know until you can play more of it. I don't know that 5 hours is enough for me to say definitively, sure, but I'm certainly heartened by what I saw.
So we shook the magic 8 ball here, and it's all signs point to yes. Is what's coming up on the magic 8 ball.
So far, so good.
And I guess that leads me to a quick thing. I should have been a better host and set up at the top. Give me real quick in like 10 seconds your history with the Borderlands franchise.
Yeah, I've been a Borderlands fan since the first game came out. I have all the achievements in the first game and the second game. Nice. I played a ton of this game for many years. And then around Borderlands 3, I sort of fell off and became a more casual fan. I reviewed Tiny Tina's Wonderlands for IGN and I'm kind of the go-to looter shooter guy in general. But Borderlands in the past couple of years hasn't been as close to my heart as it once was. So hoping Borderlands 4 will change that.
All right, next question here from the IGN community. Will there be dungeons scattered throughout the open world to explore optionally?
I think the answer is yes. So I didn't get to explore too much. We were put on the first map and then we went and did one vault. That was basically the extent of the areas we were allowed to explore. But while I was on the first open world hub area, I did a side quest where I was collecting pieces of a vault key to go and do the vault that I was then later put into.
Yeah.
And so there are seemingly skippable kind of dungeons you can go to, but I didn't see anything where it's like, oh, here's a cave I can wander into that leads to a whole boss fight. I think they are more sort of bespoke, and there's probably fewer of them than like a Skyrim dungeon, right, where you're running around. It is very much in line with what we've seen in Borderlands in the past, where you're doing certain activities. But there was quite a bit to do on the map. So even though there weren't specific dungeons, there were like plenty of places I could raid with hidden loot. And because of the new traversal options, you're like gliding around the map a lot and hopping into your car instantly, which I think you just saw there in some of the footage, which is really cool to be able to do. So it feels more like an open world game, despite still very much not being open world.
Excellent. Cool. All right, next up. Next user says, my biggest question so far is hoping we see a return to Borderlands the pre-sequel system where vault hunters could interact with each other while playing multiplayer. Were you able to try out any multiplayer?
We tried out multiplayer at the very end of the demo for about 40 minutes, maybe an hour. And I didn't see any of that where the vault hunters were interacting with each other. The vault hunters talked a little bit during this demo, but per Borderlands tradition, the characters you're playing as are kind of not the main characters in Borderlands. And so there wasn't a whole bunch of interaction there, but admittedly, I didn't get to see a lot of multiplayer, which is kind of weird, right? I would say 99% of the Borderlands I have played has been in multiplayer. And so it was weird that wasn't the focus of the demo. I'm thinking maybe that's part that they're still putting together and working on. And so I didn't get to see a ton of that, unfortunately.
All right, so this next one is a time-coded reaction, presumably from YouTube here, from the 6:38 mark of your preview, your video preview. Was that a damn podracer?
Yeah. So I think I did look up these timestamps before we started recording. I believe that one is me hopping into my vehicle that you get. So there it is right there, podracer. So you can summon your vehicle whenever you want in this game. It's a new feature. You don't have to go to a catch a ride station anymore. And in this case, there does seem to be a vehicle skin or form or model that looks a lot like a podracer. I did not get to play with that exact model. I only got the starter one, but there does seem to be a vehicle that looks an awful lot like a podracer in this game, which is pretty cool.
Did you yell, "It's working," when you jumped into it?
Yeah, it's working. It's working.
It's working!
All right, next one here. Another time-stamped comment reaction to your video preview. From the 3:27 mark, so does that mean that guns no longer have the alt firing modes that we had in Borderlands 3? I actually liked that addition to the gunplay.
Yeah, so I think this commenter was reacting to a comment I made about one of the new gun manufacturers, which I believe is called the Order, which has an alternate firing mode. You can see that here. The context here is kind of important, which is I was playing in the earliest parts of the game. And so I actually don't know how common alt firing modes are in the game in general, but the Order's key feature is that their guns specifically have alt firing modes. And so I think it is something they're consolidating into a manufacturer, but I probably did not play enough of this game to say that for sure. This gun that you're seeing here is a pistol made by the Order, and its alt firing mode is that it can create gravity wells, which was super cool. And so they have alt firing as a feature in this game, but I did not see it on the vast majority of the guns I used. And so that could be different in the end game when you're getting legendaries and doing other stuff like that. But at least with the blues and greens and stuff I was finding for the vast majority of my playthrough, I did not see a whole lot of alt firing. And the ones I did see were exclusively to this gun manufacturer.
We were just talking about this question as it pertains to another game franchise before you and I started recording here, but it is a relevant question for Borderlands, a series that's now been around for quite some time. Is there really something new and exciting here to bring new players? It looks and feels more or less the same way for over a decade.
I think that is a real concern, right? There's a little bit of a push and pull between fans who want to see a return to form and fans who want the form to be completely different. I think that's a really tough line to walk when you're making a fourth, fifth, sixth game in a franchise, which I believe, although this is Borderlands 4, it's at least the sixth game, right? They've got spin-offs and all sorts of
pre-sequel, Tiny
stuff.
Tina, yeah.
I think that's tough. They very clearly want this to be a Borderlands game. And so I think if you straight up do not like Borderlands 1 and 2 specifically, you're probably not going to like this unless your main concerns with those games were, I don't think the gunplay is great, because that has been their main focus. They're focusing on gunplay first, some of the RPG mechanics second, or probably story second, and then the RPG mechanics after that. And so if nothing drew you into the other Borderlands, I don't think that's going to change here, and I don't think that that's their goal. I think their goal is to say to Borderlands fans, hey, we're still improving on the formula that you love, but the formula and the bones of this thing are going to remain largely the same. It is a problem with pretty much every franchise, right? How do you keep something new while making it the same? You don't want to change it too much, otherwise fans will be upset. The sentiment I've heard is, give me gunplay from Borderlands 3 with the like story and tone and characters of Borderlands 2. And I think that they're saying, yeah, we want to do that, but we're going to even try to do a lot better than the gunplay in Borderlands 3, because that has very clearly been a focus, like the gunplay is. And I'm sure we'll get to questions about that. But
we've got plenty more to go. So if you're watching along with us here, listening along, buckle up. There's still plenty more to talk about. Starting here, I've heard rumor that we're not getting Tiny Tina involved, which I think is a shame, as Wonderlands was amazing in my opinion. Are there going to be any characters that we actually know of? I guess probably maybe that's saying returning familiar characters, since we do have 4 new
right.
Vault Hunters here?
I didn't see any.
Okay.
In my time playing with Borderlands. And I think that is a very intentional shift. Borderlands has this thing where sort of it relies on a lot of the same characters in every game. This game does have like returning characters for sure. Like we've confirmed that like Moxie is going to be in the game and stuff like that. Like we've seen that. But when the demo I played had no characters in common except for, I think Claptrap was in it for a little bit or had some voices, but he's basically the mascot of Borderlands, right? He has to be in it. But aside from that, like I didn't have like people talking in my ear who were like previous characters in Borderlands or anything like that. Like they're very much moving away from those characters. And I think it sort of speaks to the larger feeling that this is sort of a soft reboot. Like the NPCs I was talking to, the story, it's on a completely different planet. We are not on Pandora. We're in a different world learning about different characters. And yeah, it was just a very clean break. So I think Tiny Tina, that rumor that Tina's not in the game is probably true just based on my limited time with it and talking to the developers and hearing them talk about how they kind of wanted a fresh start and to tell this separate story in this separate place. So that's just my guess.
We shall see. You only played 5 hours. 5 hours is a good chunk, but it's nowhere near the whole game. So we'll see what happens
exactly
once the whole thing's out. The next question's a good one. I wonder if there will be a hub of sorts. We kind of speak to the gameplay structure of the world.
So Borderlands 3 definitely had this with the ship that you're on, and I didn't see one in this game. My guess is they just didn't want to show it to me. Does not mean that it's not in the game, but I didn't see one. So I actually don't know the answer to this question at all. It wasn't something that they talked about.
Let's try this question on for size. Are there still team vehicles, or are we just gliding around on different kinds of jet bikes?
I'm not sure if there are team vehicles in this game. The ones I saw were only a single person. Just based on the way you summon them, there might not be team vehicles anymore, unless they're like specific tanks or something like that I haven't seen. But the reason I don't think that there are team vehicles is because you can do everything from your personal vehicle and you can also summon it wherever you are at any time. So it kind of makes team vehicles sort of irrelevant because like the speeder I was on had multiple firing modes. I could shoot missiles. I could shoot a machine gun. It could go really fast. I could get out of it and get in it anywhere I was at any time. And so when you're in that sort of dynamic, I don't really know that you need to like load everybody up in the same car anymore. And so I think the answer is probably no here. I did not see any in this game, and signs point toward this possibly being something that they don't have anymore.
Well, this next one, Travis, I don't know if this is going to expose you or if it's going to backfire on this commenter who said, "Did you play this on easy after watching the video?" What do you say, Travis?
I did not get to
confess.
Yeah, I did not get to choose my difficulty, so I actually don't know what game mode I was playing on. These were pre-made files loaded up for us with like pre-made builds, and so I didn't get to go through like character creation or anything like that. I don't think it was on easy. I don't know. I play these games on the hardest difficulty available to me because I enjoy a challenge. I mean, I also want to, I don't know if there's a question here about the footage. I saw some commenters commenting on my footage and my gameplay not being the greatest. That does happen when you do a demo. It's your first time playing the game. You're given no tutorial. You're given no tutorial. They do not tell you what the build includes or how any of its powers work. And you only have like you don't have time to read all the menus and abilities because you got to get in there and play the game. And then also you usually have a developer talking in your ear and trying to explain stuff to you while you're playing, and you're kind of looking over your shoulder. And so these live demos can be a little challenging, and it doesn't always make for the best footage. It's just part of the job, unfortunately. I don't think I played it on easy, but I couldn't tell you. Well,
but in all seriousness, I'm sure that commenter was sort of just in good fun there, but to more seriously speak to it, and you touched on this, but you just said that you're a series veteran, you've played them all, you've got hundreds, if not at this point, a 1,000+ hours into the franchise as a whole. And you just said you do play typically on the hardest difficulty. So with that context, like, you know what the hardest difficulty is like on Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3, and you did not get the sense that this was on this was on easy
Correct.
mode for you in the same
I don't think
file
it was on
provided.
easy mode, but I also don't think it was on the hardest difficulty.
Yeah, I'm sure
would
it
be
was
my
on
guess.
normal. Like that's generally.
Yeah, it was probably on normal. I was getting down to a fair amount, but that was mostly due to the fact that I was still figuring out how to play the game. I didn't have like a loadout I understood, stuff like that. But anytime I did get downed, I was able to like second win myself pretty easily. Enemies were taking like a fair amount of damage. And so my guess is it was probably on normal, but it would not be the way I would be playing the game at home with a build that I made with guns that I was familiar with, etc. You just, it's the demo environment. You play with the toys they hand you and you're trying to figure it out while also hopefully recording good footage. It's a hard gig.
It's not a very forgiving one with the audience sometimes. We've all been there. This next one, when will the graphics engine finally see a major evolution?
I would say it has. So this is Unreal 5. Perhaps not fully realized in our footage that we captured. Full disclosure, I was not able to I was not in control of the settings, right? They gave me a rig and they said, click this button when you want to capture. So I don't know what its output was, but I can tell you as somebody who has played all of the Borderlands games, like this is the prettiest game. And I think the change in engine and the new tools they've got for it are pretty clear. So if that doesn't show up in this video, I think it will when you play it in person. It definitely, it stuck out to me as being particularly pretty. That said, they're not changing the art style, right? They're still doing the cell shading. Yeah. They're still doing cartoony stuff, and I think that's probably the right move.
Borderlands,
like Borderlands.
I mean, famously for people that are old like me that go way back here, Borderlands famously didn't start out with this stylized art style. It started out with a more sort of traditional, just regular sci-fi first-person shooter look to it, and then they kind of landed on this late in the development of the first one, and it proved to just be a huge hit with the audience, and the rest is history. But yeah, I mean, it's always been an Unreal Engine game, but moving to Unreal 5, I mean, we've seen other games, and we've seen what Unreal Engine 5 can do relative to its predecessors. So yeah, I mean, it's nice looking, but yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily going to win any graphics awards at the end of the year per se.
Definitely not. Yeah, I think it's still kind of ugly by design, right? It's sort of like a lot going on, and it's got the colorful explosions and chaos and stuff, but it still is. I think it is an improvement when you play it in person. It stuck out to me.
This next user asks, is there an option to play in third person?
I don't think that there is. I went into third person a few times because you do it like when you transition into, driving your car or whatever. But right here when I'm slashing around with my swords. But I would be really surprised if suddenly Borderlands was no longer primarily FPS. I think that's what they're going for, and I don't think there's a third person option.
All right, here's one I think you can definitely speak to because it's a subjective question. What's the humor like? Borderlands 3 was childish, pardon me, and Borderlands 2, in this person's opinion, didn't age very well. I like the darker tone, but I hope the humor isn't lost.
This is a very important question to me as a comedian myself. Humor has always been super important in Borderlands, and I think everybody's got their own opinions about what works and doesn't work. And again, I think it's probably too early to tell, but I will tell you my initial impressions, which are this game has a very, very clear, different tone than I would say really any of the Borderlands games. Like the story is pretty serious. It's probably closest in its like tone to Borderlands 1, in that there's like a lot going on where there's like a planet with this person who's enslaved the entire population, and there's like a lot of commentary about that, and so there is sort of like a cyberpunk kind of dark sci-fi edge to it.
Yeah.
That said, there's still plenty of jokes. There's like all the villain, like there was one boss I fought where like he was talking to me about, I don't know, having his nipples tweaked or something like that. Like he was one of those bosses who likes pain or whatever and makes it really sexual. And so they went down that path and stuff. So I think your mileage may vary. Borderlands has always been potty humor, And so if you were a teenager and you liked Borderlands 2 and now you're older and maybe you don't like that, I would argue that your comedy tastes have changed, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I myself am a 30-something who enjoys potty humor, and so if it's done well, I can get behind that. And I think some of the jokes worked and some of them didn't, but it also wasn't. It certainly was not the same tone as Borderlands 3, and the style of joke was very different. And so I think we're going to need to spend more time with it. But I will say, in my time with it, some of the jokes landed and some of them didn't. I think it was already a step up from Borderlands 3, which is not that high of a bar. But if you've seen like Tiny Tina Wonderland, I would say it was around the same consistency as Tiny Tina's Wonderland. But Tiny Tina's Wonderland has a very different vibe to it. It's just a lot more over the top because it's pure fantasy, and it's basically just like oops all bits, right? And this wasn't that. Like, they had some bits, they had some sections that were where there was kind of an ongoing joke, like the boss that was talking to me about how he couldn't wait to be tortured or whatever. But there were also periods where there wasn't that going on, and there were sort of serious topics happening, especially in the vault, where I was kind of like learning about a backstory with a character, and there was like some story stuff going on. And so I think they're trying to balance it, and we'll see how many of, like I keep saying, I was heartened by what I saw so far. Probably too early to tell.
Robot Jungle says, why all the hate? This looks effing awesome, and I hated Borderlands 3. So maybe you kind of parse out how is, the kind of reacting to this versus how you felt about Borderlands 3.
My guess is why all the hate is because when you lose the players' confidence, it's hard to gain it back. Like, players are just, they are that way, right? Their loyalty is fleeting, and I think that's probably a good thing, right? Because it gives feedback to developers immediately on what they should change. But also, I think there's been some stuff that's happened around this game that's not related to the game that has pissed people off, like maybe Randy Pitchford's comments on how much a game should cost and that sort of stuff. And I'm seeing a lot of comments on our preview that are about that, and I don't blame them. But that's separate from the question I'm trying to answer with my previews and my reviews at IGN, which is like, how does the game feel to play? Is it worth your time? Is it fun, etc.? I'm not going to comment on whether I think various CEO comments.
Well, it didn't for all the $80 talk with him. Didn't it end up getting finally priced at $70?
I think that is true. So. Yeah, I think that is true. But also, the quote unquote real fans have probably been paying $100 for collector's editions.
That's
and
true.
Stuff over the years. So
that's a good point.
I don't really, it's a weird comment to make, and I get why fans would be turned off by that. If you want to do that, that is totally your you can do that. You've got the free reign there, but separate from the question I'm trying to answer, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess it was in the answer to this, really, as far as how you feel about it relative to Borderlands 3. It was in your headline, right? Like, you were not as high on 3 as I think, not like necessarily the entire Borderlands fan base, but they're, for all the solid mechanics there, it seemed like overall, maybe people were a little down on it relative to the previous games. But you said your headline was, hey, you are kind of back on board the train here, back on board the Borderlands 4 train based on these 5 hours that you've spent with Borderlands 4 so far.
It definitely made me root for them, having played the game. I was like, okay, cool. They're not resting on their laurels. They're trying to improve the game. They're making like, they're very clearly listening to fan feedback and trying to change the direction. And so I'm here for it. I like it when games try new stuff and aren't as kind of, they get like sequel kind of fear, they get like locked into like, well, it has to be, it has
sort of
to
analysis paralysis kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't think they're doing that with this. I think they are taking chances, and they're trying some new stuff, and they're trying to keep old stuff that they think worked well. And so they're doing exactly what I would hope a team working on a new Borderlands game would be doing. Whether or not that is successful remains to be seen, but I'm at least more optimistic having played it a bit.
And let's end. We've got a pair of very specific questions to end with. One of these I feel like you can answer just from having watched the footage, and the other one maybe is too early to tell if you didn't have a chance to really dig into the menus. Will the game have a mini-map? And how about FOV sliders?
The minimap, I think the answer is no. And we can pull up the footage right now and see it, but I don't remember there being an any map. FOV sliders, again, I didn't look in the menu extensively, but I think there were FOV sliders. I was playing on a PC. That function is more common on PCs.
True.
So whether that exists on console, I'm not exactly sure. But I did not see a mini map. The main thing that they use is the compass, and then you can pull up your map pretty quickly. And I was like, making markers or making a note of like which icon I wanted to go toward, and then getting in my car or like running in that direction basically. But yeah, there's no mini map. I think there are FOV sliders, at least on the PC version I was playing.
Well, Travis Northup, thank you so much for answering a whole bunch of questions from the IGN audience about your Borderlands 4 preview, again, which if you haven't seen it, go check it out on IGN or on IGN's YouTube channel. And we will have plenty more on Borderlands 4 leading up to its release later this year in September. But until then, keep it locked right here on IGN.